New York's housing market just did something it hasn't done in years. It gave buyers options. The numbers point to a narrow but real opening if you know where to look. Start in the present tense. Early 2000-2006. Mortgage rates sit near their lowest levels in almost 3 years. As of January 26th, the weekly average on a 30-year fixed was roughly 6.17%. That shift did not happen by accident. A federal order to purchase mortgage bonds pushed borrowing costs down and steadied them in a tight band. The result is felt in the listings, the contracts, and the neighborhoods you know by name. Citywide in New York, the supply picture changed first. The number of homes for sale is up more than 9% year over year. Not everywhere, not evenly, but in key pockets, the surge is unmistakable. Brighton Beach leads the city. Inventory there jumped nearly 49% in a single year. In nearby Queens, Flushing follows with a 48% leap in listings. Rego Park and Long Island City are climbing too. Brooklyn's spike stretches from Bushwick and Crown Heights to Midwood, East Flatbush, and Sheepshead Bay. Even Manhattan's financial district appears on the short list of neighborhoods with some of the strongest gains in new listings. The timing matters. Mortgage rates stabilized late last year. Buyers came back into the market. Sellers noticed that more homes were going under contract in December than is typical for that season, and new listings followed. Inventory is rising even as sales pick up. That is an unusual combination in a city where for years, supply almost always trailed demand. Zoom out to the nation for a moment. There are nearly 1.7 million homes for sale, one of the highest December levels since the pandemic. It is, in many places, a buyer's market. There are more than 500,000 more home sellers than buyers right now. Yet the picture is not uniform. Supply remains limited in parts of the East Coast and the Midwest. New York's 9% citywide rise tells you opportunity is real here, but it is not everywhere. Rates shape the mood. Recent forecasts expect mortgage rates to average around 6.3% this year, trading between roughly 6.1 and 6.3%, with brief dips into the 5% range. Economists also see the central bank cutting policy rates twice in 2020, 6 as the labor market softens, but not enough to deliver the ultra-low borrowing costs of the pandemic. Another set of projections argues rates are unlikely to fall below 6% at all this year. Put those together, and the base case is stability. Mortgage costs above 6%, not racing higher, not colliding with the twos again. If rates are the thermostat, the lock-in effect has been the deadbolt. During the pandemic, millions refinanced into sub-3% mortgages and sat tight. That made owners reluctant to trade up or move at all, starving the market of listings. Late 2000-2005, the deadbolt clicked. The share of mortgages with rates at 6% or higher surged from about 7% in 2002 to roughly 20% by the end of 2025. That overtook the once dominant pool of borrowers locked into sub-3% loans, which had peaked at nearly 25% of outstanding mortgages in 2021. Even in a slow sales year, 5 to 6 million people still take out new mortgages annually, and they've been doing it at 6+%. More owners now have payments closer to the market rate. That reduces the penalty for moving. Expect more upward pressure on new listings as a result. New York's price ladder tells its own story. In 2000, the city's median sale price rose 4% year over year to $780,000. Sales activity increased too, up 6% to $31,940 one transactions across single-family homes, condos, and co-ops. In Manhattan, the median price inched up 2% to reach $1,150,000, while transactions jumped 11% to $12,851. At the top of the market, the split became dramatic. Hudson Yards remained the city's most expensive neighborhood for the 7th straight year in 2005, with a median sale price of $5,580,000. But that number fell 22% year over year, one of the sharpest declines among the city's priciest enclaves. Sales in Hudson Yards rose 83%, yet the raw increase was only about 20 additional closings, all concentrated at 35 Hudson Yards and 15 Hudson Yards. One tower, one address, and a lot of headlines. The median still screams luxury. The trend line whispered caution. SoHo reclaimed the number 2 slot after a 20% jump took its median to $3,730,000. Sales there climbed 24% to 130, with higher-priced co-ops nudging the needle. TriBeCa landed at number 3 with a median of $3,700,000, up 12% after 62 more condo sales pushed volume to 329 transactions. The condo median in TriBeCa rose to $4 million from $3,600,000 the year before. NoHo reached a median of $3,310,000, a 12% gain on just 38 sales, which still represented a 27% increase in volume and only 8 more transactions than the prior year. Central Park South closed the year with a median of $2,930,000 across 104 sales. Both price and volume rose 12% and 8% respectively. NoHo posted a median of $2,850,000 after a 19% climb, helped by a higher median among condos. Hudson Square followed with a $2,650,000 median, up 26%, with 79 sales, 60 of them condos, and a larger share closing above the $2 million mark. Carnegie Hill showed how a mature co-op market behaves under pressure. The median there slipped 3% to $1,940,000, yet sales jumped 23% to 620 transactions. Co-ops dominated with 468 closings, alongside 15 single-family homes changing hands. Nomad saw both price and pace cool. Its median fell 3% to $1,890,000, and sales dropped 25% to $160,000. Rounding out the top 10, Cobble Hill held the line with a $1,850,000 median, essentially flat year over year. Beyond the headline zip codes, the swings were even larger. The Columbia Street Waterfront District posted the sharpest price increase among the city's 50 most expensive neighborhoods, up 39% to a median of $1,530,000. The driver was mix. Condos made up 88% of sales, up from 76% a year earlier, and the condos that changed hands were, on average, larger. Manhattan Beach and Mill Basin followed with 35% and 33% gains, respectively. Manhattan Beach benefited from a larger share of single-family transactions. Mill Basin's increase tracked with bigger average square footage among houses sold in 2025. On the downside, Red Hook recorded the biggest decline among the top 50. Its median dropped 34% to $1,310,000 as the average home sold shrank from 2,015 square feet in 2012 in 2025. Neighboring Carroll Gardens fell 23% to a $1,510,000 median, influenced by a slight shift away from single-family homes. Boerum Hill was the volume outlier. Sales spiked 143%, driven by activity at 323 Bergen Street, and its median rose 19% to $1,790,000. Greenwood Heights saw 39% more sales year over year. Williamsburg tallied 658 transactions, up 27%. About 10% were in One Domino Square condominiums. Queens' presence on the luxury list contracted, but its standouts were clear. Malba landed at number 16 with a $1,490,000 median after tallying 20 single-family sales. Fresh Meadows rose 12% to a median of $1,100,000. Bell Harbor reached $1 million even, up 8%, with a low count, 21 houses, and 5 co-ops. Hunters Point, by contrast, slid 15% to $997,000, and sales dropped 24% to 239 transactions. New York's top 50 most expensive neighborhoods actually included 52 locations due to ties. Manhattan had the strongest presence, with 25 neighborhoods. Brooklyn contributed 21. Queens claimed 6. And the floor to even appear on that list was high. The minimum median was $980,000. What happened, why it happened, who feels it, and what comes next? This is the chain. What happened? The inventory tide turned in select New York neighborhoods. Citywide listings rose more than 9%. Brighton Beach nearly doubled its options, up almost 40 to 9%. Flushing added 48% more homes for sale. Manhattan's financial district, Rego Park, and Long Island City joined the rise. Simultaneously, the luxury market saw a reshuffle. Hudson Yards held first place on price at $5,580,000, even as its median fell 22%. SoHo, TriBeCa, and NoHo pushed higher. Carnegie Hill and Nomad eased back, and Carroll Gardens and Red Hook registered double-digit declines. Why it happened? Financing costs stabilized, demand edged back, and the lock-in effect eased. The weekly 30-year fixed, near 6.17% in late January, is a world away from 8% in October 2023. The share of outstanding mortgages at 6% or higher climbed from about 7% in 2020 to roughly 20% by the end of 2025. Meanwhile, buyers sensed a window and made moves. Mortgage purchase applications rose to their highest level in 3 years. Sellers responded in December with more listings than usual for that season. Who is affected? Buyers, sellers, renters, and builders differently. Buyers first. In many parts of the country, inventory has risen from its post-pandemic lows. There are nearly 1.7 million homes for sale and more than 500,000 more sellers than buyers. In general, that puts the negotiating leverage in the buyer's hands. Yet affordability is still the main gatekeeper. The median U.S. sale price sits around $429,000, up 0.6% from a year ago. Nationally, most homes, more than 75%, are unaffordable to the typical household. The average salary hovers near $64,000, while in many markets, owning a typical property comfortably requires a six-figure income. Higher borrowing costs mean today's buyers can afford roughly 30 to 40% less house than in 2021. The human cost is visible in the calendar. By 22,205, the average first-time buyer was about 40 years old, and in the participation rate. The share of first-time buyers fell to 21%, a record low. 1 in 6 aspiring homeowners walked away in the last 5 years. Sellers next. More listings mean more competition and less margin for error. In New York, a 9% rise in inventory does not create abundance, but it changes the tone. In Brighton Beach and Flushing, buyers who were once shut out now have choices. That can mean fewer panic decisions and less bidding war fatigue. It also means pricing realistically matters, especially when the minimum median to sit among the city's top 50 neighborhoods is $980,000, and when the citywide median has been pushing up 4% higher year over year to $780,000. The rental side is a different rhythm. Nationally, rent affordability improved. As of October, a median income household would spend roughly 27.2% of income on the typical rent, the lowest share since August 2021. Projections for 2026 show multifamily rents rising just 0.3%, giving incomes a chance to catch up. Single-family rents are expected to climb about 2.3% as many households delay buying. New York is the exception. In the city, rent growth is expected to accelerate. Space and amenities will matter. Communal areas are likely to become defining features in the rental landscape as buildings compete for families and as more renters choose the lifestyle for mobility and lower maintenance. Builders sit at the supply end. New single-family construction is slowing. Starts are trending 5% below last year's pace as of the August reading. A further 2% drop in 2026 would bring starts below roughly 947,000 homes begun in 2023, which is the low water mark since the start of the pandemic. This year is shaping up to be the slowest for single-family starts since 2019. Builders are expected to lean on incentives, rate buydowns in particular, to keep the pipeline moving, especially in markets where affordability remains tight. Now, tighten the focus back to New York's streets and buildings, because that is where the story becomes tactile. Walk the West Side. Hudson Yards holds a median of $5,580,000. Yet its 22% drop from the prior year shows how concentrated the activity is. 83% more sales sounds like velocity. In practice, it translated to roughly 20 additional closings, all within 35 Hudson Yards and 15 Hudson Yards. The high end can move dramatically when a few large units trade hands. Shift south to SoHo. 20% appreciation took the median to $3,730,000. Co-ops set the pace. A 24% increase in sales pushed volume to 130 transactions. Crossover to TriBeCa, 12% growth on the median, now $3,700,000. 329 total sales after a 19% rise in volume. 62 more condo closings than the year before. A condo median rising to $4 million from $3,600,000 adds to the weight of those transactions. In NoHo, the numerator is small, but the signal is real. $30 8 sales, up 27%, moved the median to $3,310,000, up 12%. Central Park South's 104 sales and a $2,930,000 median show a mature market with simultaneous price and volume growth, 12% and 8% respectively. Nolita's 19% rise to a $2,850,000 median is anchored by higher value condos. And there are the neighborhoods where prices pull back, despite strong demand elsewhere. Carnegie Hill's median slipped to $1,940,000, down 3%. Yet 620 sales, 23% more than the prior year, dominated by 468 co-ops, tell you activity and affordability tiers can travel in opposite directions. Nomad's pullback down 3% on price to $1,890,000 and down 25% on volume to 160 sales, shows how quickly momentum can shift when buyers resist. Brooklyn remains a study in contrasts. Cobble Hill's $1,850,000 median stayed nearly flat, yet just a few blocks away, the Columbia Street waterfront district surged 39% to $1,500,000, as larger condos claimed a bigger share, 88% of sales, up from 76%. Boerum Hill's 143% spike in transactions was powered by 323 Bergen Street. Its median jumped 19% to $1,790,000. Greenwood Heights saw 39% more sales. Williamsburg posted 658 closings, up 27%, with about 10% flowing through one Domino Square condominiums. And then there is Red Hook, a 34% median decline to $1,310,000, driven not by collapse in demand, but by the average home sold shrinking from 2,015 square feet to 1,612. Submarkets are local. Footage matters. Queens gathers a different energy. Malba, at number 16 citywide, shows a $1,490,000 median on only 20 single-family sales. Fresh Meadows' $1,100,000 median, up 12%, hints at steady upward pressure. Bell Harbor's $1 million median, up 8% on 21 houses and 5 co-ops, celebrates scarcity. Hunters Point's $997,000 median, down 15%, and 239 sales, down 24%, underline that new supply, changing condo mix, or price resistance can pull numbers back as quickly as they rose. These are not isolated statistics. They connect to decisions: when to list, when to buy, when to rent longer. If you are a buyer in New York, the combination of 9% higher inventory and stabilized rates around 6.1 to 6.3% removes some of the frenzy. In Brighton Beach, inventory up nearly 40 to 9% means it is no longer the same competitive sprint. In Flushing, a 48% surge in listings means more options, more room to compare, more negotiating power. Even in the financial district, more new listings put slight downward pressure on the pace of bidding. The risk of overpaying because there were 3 viable choices in your price range instead of 1 shrinks. If you are a seller, the playbook changes. Price to the market you are actually in. In SoHo, where the median climbed 20% to $3,730,000 and sales rose 24%, overpricing can still be punished when buyers have more to choose from across Lower Manhattan. In neighborhoods where the median fell, Nomad at $1,890,000, down 3%, or Red Hook at $1,310,000, down 34%, anchoring to last year's comps ignores the new mix and the new math. In Carnegie Hill, where the median slipped 3%, but sales rose 23%, strategy matters more than narrative. If you are renting, the national signal is one of relief. As of October, a median income household spends about 20 to 7.2% of income on the typical rent, the lowest share since August 2021. Multifamily rents are projected to rise just 0.3% this year, while single-family rents climb about 2.3%. But in New York City, rent growth is expected to accelerate. That suggests the math for renting versus buying will not ease simply because mortgage rates fell from 8% in late 2023 to the low sixes early this year. The amenity race, communal spaces, family-friendly features will likely intensify as renters make more deliberate choices to stay mobile and reduce maintenance burdens. And if you build, the challenge is patience. With single-family starts trending 5% below last year's pace as of August, and a further 2% drop likely to put starts below roughly 947,000 homes begun in 2023, the supply pipeline is thinner. 2026 is shaping up to be the slowest year for single-family starts since 2019. Incentives will remain part of the toolkit. Rate buydowns matter when buyers' budgets are squeezed by 6+% mortgages and when most homes, more than 75%, are out of reach for the typical household. Put all this in a forward frame. Economists expect home values to rise modestly in 2010 by about 1.2% nationally, after flat performance in 2010-5. Fewer owners should be underwater as prices firm up. The number of major markets with falling home values could be cut by half, to 12, relative to late last year. Existing home sales are forecast around 4.26 million, a 4.3% increase from this year's projected total. The trend that underpins these forecasts is simple: gradual affordability improvement, not a windfall, steady demand, not a surge. In the New York Metro, that likely means buyers get a bit more breathing room without a collapse in prices. Citywide medians rising 4% to $780,000 in 2025, and Manhattan's 2% increase to $1,150,000 suggest a base of demand that will not vanish at 6+% mortgage rates. The reshuffling at the top, Hudson Yards down 20 to 2% on price, yet still at a $5,580,000 median, SoHo up 20 to $3,730,000, TriBeCa up 12 to $3,700,000, signals a market recalibrating around size, mix, and address. There is another undercurrent to watch. Who is buying? More than 30 million homeowners carry no mortgage. The share of mortgage-free owners rose to 40% in 22, from 33% in 2010. That equity can be quiet and relentless. It shows up in competitive bids, all-cash offers, and long hold times. For those trying to break in, it widens the gap. When the average first-time buyer is 40 and only 21% of buyers are first-timers, the market writes its own rules. The dynamic is clearest in the threshold to luxury. $980,000 was the minimum median to make the city's top 50 neighborhoods in 2025. Even in boroughs with more modest price profiles, that bar filters buyers before they walk through an open house. What comes next is a set of probabilities, not a prophecy. Base case over the next 12 months, mortgage rates hover above 6%, roughly 6.3% on average, give or take a few tenths, with periodic dips into the fives that draw attention but don't last. National home values rise about 1.2%. Existing home sales push to roughly 4.26 million, about a 4.3% lift. New single-family construction remains weak, potentially the slowest since 2019. Renters nationwide see a slight affordability tailwind, with multifamily rents rising only 0.3% and single-family rents about 2.3%. New York City bucks the rental relief trend with faster rent growth and a competitive amenities race. Within the 5 boroughs, expect inventory pockets to persist. Brighton Beach's nearly 49% surge and Flushing's 48% jump will not evaporate overnight. Neighborhoods like Rego Park, Long Island City, Bushwick, Crown Heights, Midwood, East Flatbush, Sheepshead Bay, and the Financial District are poised to feel more normal, with slightly longer shopping windows and more negotiation. The luxury tier will keep shifting. Columbia Street waterfront district's 39% leap to a $1,530,000 median, Red Hook's 34% fall to $1,310,000, and Carroll Gardens' 23% slide to 1,510,000 illustrate how mix and square footage can swing a neighborhood's headline number in a single year. Two watch items could swing the arc. First, the path of rates and inflation. Signals suggest inflation could creep higher depending on economic and immigration policy, which would keep mortgage rates elevated and erode affordability gains. Conversely, if mortgage rates sustain a move into the high 5% range rather than brief dips, purchase applications, already at a 3-year high, could surge again. That would pull more buyers into contract quickly, tighten inventory, and push sellers to re-raise price expectations. Keep an eye on that 6% line. Projections diverge on whether rates can break below it in 2006. The market's psychology is tied to that threshold. Second, the persistence of new listings momentum. December brought more under-contract activity than usual for the season, and listings followed. There are more sellers than buyers nationally, more than 500,000, but some sellers are already pulling back after realizing they cannot fetch top dollar everywhere. If that retreat accelerates in New York, the more than 9% citywide inventory gain could thin, returning neighborhoods to the tightrope. At the same time, the composition of mortgages matters. The share at 6+% is rising, roughly 20% by late 2025, while the sub-3% cohort continues to shrink from its nearly 25% peak in 2021. If that trend persists, the lock-in deadbolt stays looser, and listings keep coming. Threaded through all of it is a stark affordability reality. More than 75% of homes nationally remain unaffordable to the typical household. The average salary near $64,000 collides with the need for six-figure incomes to comfortably own in many markets. Prices are about 50% higher than before the pandemic. Buyers can afford roughly 30 to 40% less house than in 2021. In New York's top pockets, the numbers are simply larger. TriBeCa at $3,700,000, SoHo at $3,730,000, Central Park South at $2,930,000, and Hudson Yards at $5,580,000. Even Fresh Meadows at $1,100,000 and Bell Harbor at $1 million tell a story of rungs that feel too far apart. But consider the other side of the ledger. New York's citywide median rose 4% to $780,000 in 2025. Manhattan's median rose 2% to $1,150,000. Sales across the city climbed 6% to 31,941. Manhattan's transactions rose 11% to $12,850. Those are not numbers of a market in freefall. They are the marks of a market normalizing around a new cost of money and a new distribution of choices. For the next buyer walking into an open house in Crown Heights, where inventory is rising, the picture is more balanced. For the seller in Nomad, where the median slipped to $1,890,000 and sales fell to $160,000, the lesson is restraint. For the family looking at a 2-bedroom rental in Long Island City, the math says rents may rise faster here than in the rest of the country. For the builder with a project in Midwood, the trend says to budget for rate buydowns and longer absorption, with starts trending lower than last year and a further 2% drop likely to set a new post-pandemic low. The city has not become a buyer's paradise. But after years of sprinting just to keep up, house hunters finally get to shop at a normal pace in select neighborhoods. The spreadsheet starts to make sense again when mortgage rates hover near 6.17% instead of 8%. The calendar feels kinder when inventory in Brighton Beach rises nearly 40% and in Flushing, 48%. And the skyline reminds you that prices move in chapters, not straight lines. When Hudson Yards stays number one at $5,580,000, even as its median falls 22%, and when Columbia Street Waterfront District leaps 39% to $1,530,000. The window is narrow. It is real. And like every New York story, it will not stay the same for long. If you want the next move to be guided by hard numbers, subscribe and stay with us.